Welcome to Africa 54. Here's what's coming up. Former U.S. President Donald Trump is safe after what officials say was the second assassination attempt on his life in 2 months. Severe flooding in Nigeria's northeast kills at least 30 people and affects more than 1 million others. And Zimbabwe's slow-moving stance from heavy coal-based energy reliance to green energy is affecting families in coal mining who continue to be exposed to harmful emissions. All this and much more coming up on today's Africa 54. Former U.S. President Donald Trump is safe after what the FBI says appears to be the second assassination attempt on his life in 2 months. According to the Washington Post, the man arrested in connection with the alleged Trump assassination attempt, Ryan Wesley Routh, appeared in a Florida courtroom Monday on a charge of possession of a firearm by a convicted felon. Americans are now facing another dramatic event in what is already a high-stakes, high-drama election. VOA's Anita Powell reports from Washington.
For the second time in 9 weeks, former President Donald Trump walked away from a would-be assassination. The latest on Sunday afternoon at his golf club in West Palm Beach, Florida, the FBI said. Unlike the previous attempt, this one did not happen on live television, like the dramatic shooting Trump survived on July 13th. That attempt wounded Trump in the ear and killed a rally attendee behind him. Days later, Trump accepted the Republican Party's presidential nomination. Officials on Sunday said Trump was not hurt.
Former President Donald Trump is safe and unharmed.
The Federal Bureau of Investigation, which is leading the investigation, says it appears to be an attempted assassination. The local sheriff said the suspect fled, leaving behind an AK-47-style rifle with a scope, a GoPro camera, and 2 backpacks. Police later caught him as he sped along the main highway into a neighboring county.
The Secret Service agent that was on the course did a fantastic job. What they do is they have an agent that jumps one hole ahead of time to where the president was at. And he was able to spot this rifle barrel sticking out of the fence and immediately engage that individual, at which time the individual took off.
In a joint statement less than an hour after the Trump campaign announced this second attempt on Trump's life, President Joe Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris said they were being regularly briefed and said they are relieved that Trump is safe. The sheriff said that the suspect was between 300 and 500 yards, about 275 to 460 meters from Trump, hiding in shrubbery. And as Monday dawns and questions swirl in America about how this will add further uncertainty in an already tumultuous election, those simple numbers underscore a terrifying fact: that a shooter managed to get so close to Trump, comfortably within the range of an AK-47 style rifle, about 275 meters. Anita Powell, VOA News, Washington.
For more perspective on the second attempted assassination of former U.S. President Donald Trump, I'm joined live from here in Washington by Bruce Fein, an American lawyer specializing in constitutional and international law. Bruce, this is the second assassination attempt on Trump's life. What should we make of it?
Well, we don't know whether this second constituted an attempt. That's something that still needs to be proven. In my lifetime, there actually was fired and severely injured a presidential candidate, George Wallace, Arthur Brimmer, in Maryland, shot gun. I do not believe that this particular incident shows any necessary deficiency in the kind of protection presidential candidates have. The most well-protected official in the history of the world was Adolf Hitler. He almost was assassinated of 1944, despite the insecurity here. It's impossible without having a police state, have you, to reduce zero. And I think that this particular incident, egregious, goes to decay culture. But I think
Bruce,
Mr. Trump.
I'm having a little trouble with the audio. It kind of
Many
breaking a little bit. Bruce, if you
on
can hear me? Can you hear me, Bruce? There's a little bit of audio issues here, but still, let's try to see if this works. What would be the implications if the assassin or the two assassins succeeded?
We don't know what the implications were. They succeeded. Assuming that they were successful in having this killed, certainly would be chaos in the system. So close to the election, it's hard to imagine Republicans appoint a successor in time, have a campaign, since over the last literally 8 years, the party has reduced its succession to the single individual, Donald Trump. So not like there's a successor waiting to pick up the torch. It would be fortunate because I think those circumstances.
Right, Bruce. I think
any election.
Right, Bruce. We're going to have to leave it there. We can barely make some of the points that you're trying to put across because of some technical issues here. Bruce Fein is an American lawyer specializing in constitutional and international law. Iran's threatening behavior toward the United States and its ally Israel is one of only a few foreign policy issues addressed by U.S. presidential rivals Kamala Harris and Donald Trump during the election campaign. VOA's Michael Lepin looks at the differing approaches of Harris and Trump in facing the threat from Iran and its proxies.
Democratic presidential nominee and Vice President Kamala Harris has focused her relatively brief remarks about Iran on one concept: defense.
And know this, I will never hesitate to take whatever action is necessary to defend our forces and our interests against Iran and Iran-backed terrorists.
In her debate with her Republican rival, former President Donald Trump, she pledged to extend that defensive approach to Israel, saying, "I will always give Israel the ability to defend itself, in particular as it relates to Iran and any threat that Iran and its proxies pose to Israel." The Biden-Harris administration helped Israel defend itself against an unprecedented aerial assault by Iran in April. It also sent warships to the region last month to deter Iran from doing so again. Emphasizing that approach could endear Harris to some Americans.
I think that she knows Americans are tired of war and certainly doesn't want to sound like she's looking for another. And so who can be against defense, right? But Americans are wary about offense. So perhaps that can be part of it, especially given the history of the last quarter century.
But the Biden-Harris administration also saw Iran's proxies escalate their aggression in August, striking U.S. bases in Iraq and Syria and executing a U.S. hostage in Gaza.
There has been zero retaliation from the United States. They've retained that defensive posture. My worry is that Iran is getting the message that they can continue to provoke and to escalate on their terms, and all the United States will do is respond, not take the initiative.
Trump is emphasizing his record of sanctioning Iran for its malign behavior when he was president.
I told China and other countries, if you buy from Iran, we will not let you do any business in this country, and we will put tariffs on every product you do send in of 100% or more.
In the debate, he accused the Biden-Harris administration of enriching Iran and its proxies by easing that pressure. He also promised to resolve the Iran threat, but did not elaborate, saying, "Look at what's going on in the Middle East. I will get that settled, and fast." During his term, Trump engaged in a 2-year-long maximum pressure campaign against Iran. Trump's avoidance of recommitting to that strategy gives him the option of pursuing a new policy that pressures Iran more quickly. One similarity between Harris and Trump is that neither of them says what they will do if Iran makes a nuclear bomb, a prospect that Iranian officials have hinted at. Michael Lepin, VOA News, Washington.
Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger are expected to soon launch new biometric passports, according to Mali's military leader, Colonel Assimi Goïta. The junta-led states are looking to solidify the alliance after splitting from regional bloc ECOWAS. For more information, I want to bring in Africa 54's Paul Ndiho, who has a special guest. Hello, Paul.
Thanks, Esther. Joining me to discuss the soon-to-be-launched biometric passport system is Modibo Dembele, Managing Editor of VOA's Bambara service. Hello, Modibo. Welcome.
Thank you.
What do you make of the latest developments in that region?
And as it is known, the Colonel Assimi Goïta, during this address, he stated that the three countries are launching soon a new biometric passport, as long as many other decisions that was made during his speech.
What should we make of this new latest development? We've seen in the past they have proposed a new currency for that the affected countries, Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso, but nothing has kicked off. What should we expect going forward?
And if we try to assess his speech last time, according to Colonel Assimi, right now they are working on it, and if this happens, it may potentially have a lot of effect on ECOWAS and also on WAMU, which is the West African Economic Monetary Union. When we know one of the main goals of the sub-regional organization is to create a single currency, which is called ECO, for its member state. But with the withdrawal of those countries, which is Mali, Burkina, and Niger, which is almost 60 million people, it's going to be a lot of obstacles, especially for ECOWAS to attain, and also potentially to have also an impact on the free movement of people, especially the circulation and people and the goods within the regional organization. And Paul, also what we can add to that, that's also even, this could also disrupt the regional security within the organization. When we know most of those countries, I wouldn't say they are not rich, but they are struggling right now to tackle especially the fight against insurgency, Al-Qaeda and other. However, if you listen to the leaders of African Alliance states, they think this is an opportunity. They are shifting. This is an alternative because they think they are open to agreement, which sooner or later we may see new organization or also new agreement. Yeah. For instance, during one of his address, Colonel Assimi was saying that the IS countries are open to sign any bilateral or agreement with any member state of the ECOWAS.
We've seen, like, let's say, for example, the European Union, they're trying to unite. There's been this call for Africans to unite. But in this particular case, we are seeing these people trying to divide what has been the ECOWAS, known for bringing stability in that region. What do you make of that?
And you're right. However, if you take like the reading from those leaders, they think the sovereignty and economic independence are not met. Reason why they are really trying to put in place this new entity, which according to them is a way and a chance for them to reach the economic and especially to get the political independence from like former colonizer, if we take the case of France. And on the other side also, it could be a chance also for fragmentation when we know the economic power if state. So that could be also a problem. However, let's wait and see.
Unfortunately, we've run out of time. Thank you, Modibo.
Pleasure.
Modibo Dembele is a managing editor of VOA's Bambara service. Back to you, Esther.
Thanks, Paul. National emergency officials say severe flooding in northeastern Nigeria has killed at least 30 people and affected more than 1 million others. There's desperation in camps housing hundreds of thousands of displaced people who are left with limited food aid and facilities. Timothy Obiezu reports from Maiduguri.
Zainab Abdullahi woke up to chaos in her community the night of September 10th as flood waters swept in. She gathered what she could and fled with her 10 children, but 2 got lost along the way and she hasn't seen them since.
When the floods came, some neighbors were helping me carry my children because there are too many of them. But we lost 2 of my daughters in the whole chaos. One of them has 6 children. We don't know where they are.
The flood overran half of Maiduguri when a local dam collapsed due to heavy rains on Tuesday. State officials say dozens have died and up to 1 million have been seriously affected. Rescue workers have been moving hundreds of thousands of people out of affected communities. State authorities have set up camps to respond to the emergency, but they say there isn't enough food and shelter for everyone. State officials say this camp is now overstretched with more than 14,000 internally displaced people, yet more continue to arrive. For many flood victims, it's a desperate scramble for survival.
We're just stranded. We've not gotten food. Thank God I got the stipend the governor gave us days ago. That's what I've been using to sustain my family.
2 years ago, Nigeria's worst flooding in a decade killed 600 people and displaced 1.4 million. The United Nations Humanitarian Agency says the situation is serious.
It is a profound crisis, and it's a crisis, as you say, that comes in the middle of another crisis, where 4.8 million people are in need of food assistance in the northeast, in the Bay States. So what we are seeing is that already vulnerable people are now in a desperate situation.
Borno State is the epicenter of Nigeria's 15-year-long battle against Boko Haram and other terror groups.
What we're also then focusing on is to make sure that we don't have the spread of disease. And the government are moving people out of areas that have been affected, because clearly there is the threat of communicable disease.
Nigerian authorities have announced the release of $1.8 million in each state to handle the flooding and other crises. For now, Abdullahi's biggest hope is to see her missing daughters again. Timothy Obiezu, VOA News, Maiduguri, Borno State, Nigeria.
A plan by the Kenyan government to lease the country's main international airport to India's Adani group is sparking anger among Kenyans. It's also triggered a strike by the country's aviation workers. For more analysis into the Kenya-Adani deal, I'm joined live via Skype from Nairobi by Macharia Munene, a professor of history and international relations at the United States International University in Kenya. Professor Munene, who runs the Adani group, and what reason is the Kenyan government giving for leasing the country's main airport to a foreign company?
Well, the Adani, Gautam Adani, the owner, the head, is the one dictating almost everything. And he seems to have taken advantage of the new government in Kenya to advance some suggestions that, because the government was vulnerable, seemed to have accepted without thinking very much what the repercussions would be. The reaction to it is hostile. The Kenyans are very angry because it showed how vulnerable the president is and his team, and the detriment to the country, the image and the potential loss of resources and income and work is immense, and the Kenyans are reacting to it in a very negative way. They are not happy at all with what has happened.
So what are the implications for Kenyan airport workers if the Adani group does take over that work?
Well, they become subject to Adani dictates. The Adani would set the terms. Kenya, as a government, or the state, will have very little control on what happens in the airport. In fact, not just Jomo Kenyatta Airport, but all the airports in Kenya will come under the Adani control. Kenya will lose its sovereignty in this regard. And that's one of the reasons Kenyans are very angry at the whole thing. It shows how short-sighted the officials in Kenya were in agreeing, if they did agree to this kind of arrangement. For Adani, he's doing very well, despite his reputation worldwide of shady dealings. Seems to be getting away with it in many ways. It's just extending worldwide, and Kenya appears to be available for taking advantage of.
So, Professor,
the workers will be very angry.
Yeah. Well, I thought there was the Office of the Auditor General, where, you know, when you give such big deals to outside companies or people from outside of the country, there should be some kind of vetting about this. Should Kenyans be concerned that such a deal in a sensitive place like the international airport could potentially compromise the country's security?
Yes, Kenyans are concerned, and they should be concerned, extremely concerned, because of the insensitivity of the government to the wishes of the Kenyan, to Kenyans' interests. So it raises the question whether the government knows what Kenya's interests are so that it can lease or give away such a strategic part of the national infrastructure. The Auditor General keeps on pointing out to malfeasance, corruption, and bad dealings. So it said there was a lot of bad dealings in this regard, which ignored Kenya's interests. And as a people, Kenyans are very angry at this betrayal, what appears like a betrayal by the government of Kenyan interest to a foreign entity like Adani, which has questionable dealings in other places. It is a very annoying situation to the Kenyans, and they are just wondering what went wrong.
Professor, quickly, is there any legal challenge to this in a court of law in Kenya? Yes, no, what's going on?
Yeah, some lawyers have gone to court to raise issues, particularly since the procedures were not followed. And even the ministers themselves have admitted that procedures were not proper. It was so secretly done that it was supposed to be a fait accompli. But now with the people complaining, with the information coming out, some people have gone to court, and we are waiting to see what the court will decide on the matter. And I think the court will reject the whole thing.
Professor Munene, many thanks for your insight. Macharia Munene is a professor of history and international relations at the United States International University in Kenya. Still to come, Zimbabwe's coal mining exposes families to harmful emissions. We'll be right back.
Health, wellness, sport, beauty, medical breakthroughs. Healthy Living cares about your well-being. What are the main health concerns in Africa and around the world? Find out the latest on coronavirus. Connect with our experts and ask them questions.
How long does the virus stay?
Join me, Linoch Mudu, in Washington, every week on Healthy Living, right here on VOA.
In other news, Tito Jackson, one of the brothers who made up the famed group the Jackson 5, has died at age 70. Tito was the third of 9 Jackson children, which include global superstars Michael and sister Janet. His 3 sons announced their father's death late Sunday in a post on Instagram. The Jackson 5 produced several #1 hits in the 1970s, including ABC and I Want You Back. Guinea is handing over a plot of land to thousands of people forcibly evicted by previous governments. Some of the victims have waited for more than 25 years for compensation. Human Rights Watch says more than 20,000 were displaced when the government of former President Alpha Conde demolished several neighborhoods in Conakry between February and May 2019. And the presidential campaign season is underway in Tunisia, and many Tunisians are taking their anger to the streets to protest against what they say is the deteriorating state of the country. Hundreds of Tunisians marched peacefully on Friday, calling for an end to what they say is a police state. Zimbabwe's heavy reliance on coal-based energy is adversely affecting the health of families in coal mining regions who continue to be exposed to dirty air from coal burning. Columbus Mavunga has more.
32-year-old Tinashe Raphael Matika says he's worried about the emissions from Hwange Thermal Power Station, which burns coal to generate energy. Matika says as the coal burns, dark smoke drifts over his home less than a kilometer away, creating health hazards and risks to farming.
The ash now poses a threat not just to the human beings, the people around, also to the vegetation. It is now harder to conduct subsistence farming. The law does not mandate that these companies test the exposure of community members to the pollutants, but rather only the labor aspect is covered by the Pneumoconiosis Act.
Matsika was referring to a law that mandates that companies pay for pneumoconiosis tests, but only for its employee. Pneumoconiosis is a lung disease that is caused by breathing in dust and manifests in coughing and inflammation, doctors say. And continued exposure to the dust can lead to cancer. The Hwange Thermal Power Station is operated by the government-owned Zimbabwe Electricity Supply Authority, or ZESA. Residents near the power plant say the problem has existed for years. The Zimbabwe government has yet to respond to the concerns of the communities affected by the coal-burning energy power stations. An advocacy group known as the Greater Hwange Residents Trust has since petitioned the government to amend a 1970s law and ensure the affected people like Matika are helped. Stembin Lovu is the group's program officer.
The community of Hwange, the Ingagula community especially, is faced by air pollution, and we want people to be tested for pneumoconiosis for free and the community's relocation to a safer place with less pollution.
As the government has not responded to the petition, Tobokile Shoko, monitoring officer at the Center for Natural Resource Governance, says a solution lies in moving to clean energy.
I think we should also try and introduce the issue of solar, of using solar here in Hwange.
The Zimbabwe Electricity Supply Authority says ferrochrome mines are installing hydropower stations to produce between 350 and 400 megawatts of electricity for their use and possibly selling in surplus to the national grid. Sidin Gatam, ZESA's executive chairperson, added that 31,000 farms in the country will have solar power installed as part of efforts to move to clean energy and reduce pressure on the grid. Gata has spoken highly of the coming solar project on farms.
They use only 30, 35, at most 40% of the time they use electricity, mostly for irrigation. Now, with PV solar, the energy is coming every day for 10 hours or so. So they have an opportunity to capture this energy and sell it back to ZESA.
That would result in Zimbabwe less relying on thermal energy and reduce length power cuts, which last as long as 18 hours in some areas. Columbus Mavungam, VOA News, Hwange, Zimbabwe.
Thanks, Columbus, for that report. And that's our show for today. Be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. From all of us here in Washington, thanks for watching.